How's it going?
Pretty great. How are you doing, my fellow Australian Twitter sniper?
Fellow Australian. I didn't know you're Aussie, but I'm
All
doing good.
Australians are
Doing good.
fellows, okay?
Yeah. So yeah, we were going to talk about Bernie.
Good old
Bernie.
Bernie. Do you have Are
Yeah.
you dragging in the guy that's supposed to make me feel bad, the military VA dude
Oh
or
no,
whatever?
he's not supposed to make you feel bad. He's one of my followers, and he was saying he really wanted to talk to you about this as well. I don't think it's about making you feel bad. He's just saying that he experiences something like, well, actually, I'll let him do the talking. Like, I don't know if I want to like tell you his arguments. Probably better coming from him.
Sure.
Um, it's not about making you feel bad. It's about just talking about whether it's realistic or not to have healthcare like what Bernie's saying, because he has the opinion that it is.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess we'll just I made a sort of list of the claims um, for the debate. Sorry, I probably should have pulled this up before I called. I'm not exactly a professional streamer slash personality online or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm
no
just
problem. Take your time.
casual.
It's all good.
Okay. Right. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was this idea of Bernie's plan costing jobs.
Uh-huh.
My understanding is that it would cost administration jobs, not healthcare jobs. Like it's not doctors or nurses or whatever that are going to be laid off. It's mostly this small section of like administration jobs of dealing with insurance companies. So is that what we're talking about, or?
Yeah, I mean, that's a little semantical, but sure. Yeah. When I said healthcare jobs, I don't mean like doctors are losing their jobs. I mean like people that work in like, I mean, if you consider insurance like administrative jobs, then yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
right, yeah. I just mean like the jobs at the hospitals where they're dealing with the insurance companies. Those would be probably administration jobs. At least everything I've read called them administration jobs.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine as well. I don't. It's not like the demand for healthcare is going
Yeah.
to go down, especially as we increase the amount of people that have access to it. Yeah.
Okay, well now I think I understand where you're coming from a little better now. I guess what I would ask is what's like what's the rationale behind keeping these jobs even if it's less efficient? Because I know you if that's a criticism,
That's not a
if we're
criticism.
ever
I
gonna
hate jobs. I don't care. I would never ever rationalize
okay.
some economic or social policy on keeping jobs. I think that's the dumbest way to look at policy ever.
Okay, well
However, Bernie does that a lot. That's the whole goal behind like Bernie's like protectionist policies, for instance, or for instance having like federal jobs guarantees and whatnot. Like these are people that seem to be very big on like making jobs. And even if I don't care about jobs, like I would never use jobs to justify an argument. You have to acknowledge that losing jobs is going to hurt people, and that has to be like dealt with
yeah.
in some way. You can't just like axe. The estimates that I saw was anywhere from 900,000 to 1.4 million. I think healthcare jobs or something like that are probably going to be lost if we axe all the private insurance like Bernie wants to. So
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say because I think that the axing private healthcare, I looked into this a lot, and there seems to be like you hear completely opposite things depending what source you go to,
mhm.
and it's kind of hard to say exactly what would happen because some people are saying, "Oh no, he's not even banning all private healthcare; it's just for certain things." And I will admit, it actually is more extensive what he plans to cover than what we have in Australia,
It's more
like for
extensive than
dental and
any other
things.
country in the world. The people that say
Mm.
that he's not planning to axe all private insurance are typically Bernie bros. So what Bernie says, and we can, I'm too lazy to bring it up right now, but I've read like, you can read like the actual like posted plan that he's published. Basically
Mm.
what he says is Medicare for all, that option would be expanded to cover things like dental and vision, and all forms
Yeah.
of insurance that duplicate what his single payer program would cover are going to be prohibited.
Yeah, because I think there is an argument with some forms of healthcare to not having a private option. Because I've heard, like, I don't know if I agree with him about the vision or, like, if I were to campaign in America, I'd probably start a bit more simple because in my country, maybe we could campaign about dental health because there are good reasons to cover dental,
Yeah,
but,
that's what you just said is literally my
yeah,
entire argument. Like, there are
yeah,
European countries
yeah.
that use single payer systems, like what Bernie is suggesting, and there are some that use multi payer systems, like a public option and having private insurance on top. But like, I think that both of these have merit. I don't think single payer is horrible. I think there's merit to it. But like, for it to be politically possible, I don't think we can go from literally dog shit nothing healthcare like we have in the U.S. to the most extreme single payer program in the entire world. Like, there's no way that's gonna
Yeah,
work.
yeah. I feel like as well though, it is it's possible with his campaigning that he's sort of thinking more long term with what he's sort of suggesting. Because when you think about it, if he gets in and he's not able to do like the full thing that he wants, but he's able to do a portion of it, because I think you've talked about this as well. Having to negotiate with Senate and stuff. I'm sure you're aware of the realities. Like, I'm not going to explain that to you. Like, it's possible, I think he'd get like, not everything he's proposed, and then he could campaign on the other stuff next time, maybe.
Yeah, but like,
But
he's
yeah.
not, he's like missing his election right now because of the positions that he has. So I mean, like, we're not thinking very long term or short term or any term here if we can't even like get out of the primaries, which is where Bernie is kind of like dead at right now, like without like a significant change of course.
Yeah, yeah, it does seem like there's like, because to be honest, I wasn't really gonna argue about whether or not he's electable because I don't know, Americans, I don't really understand the mindset with certain issues with Americans generally, where there's a lot of American positions, at least. I don't know, I don't really see this from many people that aren't American, so I just consider it American. I hope that's not like
Yeah, we have a lot of
a
real
sticking
dumb
point.
fucking positions, especially when it comes to stuff like healthcare or the government providing things in general. Americans tend to have a lot of really fucking
Yeah.
stupid
Yeah,
ideas.
so I don't really think I'd argue like, oh yeah, Americans would totally be down with this because I think Americans can be really
Hmm.
unusual on some issues. Like with the gun issue, I don't get it at all. And like
Yeah.
because but my context is totally different. Guns were banned like roughly the year I was born, so like, you know, I well, they weren't really banned. They just, heavily, heavily, heavily regulated, and you rarely ever know somebody with one. So
Hmm.
for me, the idea of like people having guns is kind of weird. So I think that's why for me, it's like I can't really argue with an American about gun laws because I feel like they're just so culturally different that I can't really pass that. I feel like with you there, I can probably get through to you on like healthcare or like we could agree on some things. So
Yeah, of
I think,
course.
yeah, but I probably wouldn't engage a conservative on it because they just kind of,
Yeah, but this is
like,
like the
I
problem
don't know how
that
to
like
say that.
lefties in America forget, or liberals, we call them liberals or Democrats, people on the left
Mm.
forget, is that like you kind of do have to engage with that. Like, they're part of the political process. Like, it feels
Oh
like a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
Bernie supporters a lot of times want to literally just turn things into a totalitarian dictatorship where they can say, like, well, this is the new policy, fuck you if you don't like it. Like, people complain all the time about like,
Yeah.
oh, like the Senate is obstructing everything. This is bullshit. Well, no, it's not. Those are Republicans in the Senate and they won their elections fair and square. It's the system working as intended.
Mm.
Like, if you don't like it, you have to get people to vote differently. Like, that's the
Well,
problem.
I would say fair and square though. I don't know if you look at the voter laws, the voter ID and stuff, but
Yeah, so voter
I'm
ID can
just
definitely
being
fuck with things
pedantic.
like representation, like for like the House,
Mm,
like representatives and stuff. But I mean, like the Senate is the
mm.
Senate. It's two senators per state. Like that's,
Yeah, yeah. I'm just being pedantic. I'm sorry.
no, no, it's okay. But like, I think that any form of universal healthcare is going to be like a dramatic improvement to what we have right
People
now
think
in the United States.
Mm.
But the problem is like the Bernie's plan is so fucking extreme. There's no way, not even that like it's not politically possible. I just don't think most Americans would go for it. It's such a significant departure from what we have now, and there are so many things that would need to be controlled for. So much massive job loss that would happen across the administrative part of the healthcare industry, and then like that transition into like such a crazy, like it would require like a decade to like phase this in, and like, oh man, like a
Mm,
public
mm.
option seems so much easier politically and would probably be easier at moving us, like you said, towards single payer anyway.
Yeah, yeah, because I think with his plan, I like a lot of aspects of it, but I guess you're right that Americans are pretty like I'm trying to be polite here because like it's different for you to say, "Oh, our country's fucked," but if I come to you and go, "Oh, your country's fucked and full of idiots," then it's definitely like way ruder. So I'm like, I don't really know how to word it, but like, with like, I mean, I'm not saying that you guys are dumb, but I'm just saying like the attitudes are so strange about taxation compared to what I'm used to.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it's
I
just
guess
it's
maybe I
the
like Bernie's plan because I've already, like, I guess our country's already in a kind of position where it would be a bit more of a sense, like, it would make a bit more sense maybe with dental because, I think there are good arguments for making dental covered. And I think with him, maybe it's because I think your insurance will cover your dental in America a lot of the time with
dental
your
and vision.
employer,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think maybe it's just that he recognizes that if people lose their insurance with their employer, maybe they'll lose those things and they'll get upset about that. So maybe it's to try to preempt that response. So
Mm-hmm.
would you perhaps agree that maybe that's what the plan there is?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, of course. I mean, there's a lot of good
Mm-mm.
arguments for why single payer or why expanding coverage to like dental and vision can be incredibly positive. I don't disagree with that. But
Mm-mm.
my disagreement isn't with the policy itself. It's with the political like capital needed to get any particular policy passed. And single payer is just it's not going to happen in the United States. That's not what that's not the first step we're going to. It's going to be expanding and reworking the
Mm.
ACA and then including a strong public option. Like that's going to be the path forward. Like if we do a public option, Americans love it. A lot of Americans start switching to it. Then you'll finally have like the pressure in place maybe for like a single payer type system, but we're not going from nothing to single payer. There's no way.
Yeah, yeah. I think maybe that is like I guess I wouldn't really know about the American positions on it. So I guess I'm not really going to argue with you on that because you're probably right that most Americans wouldn't really want single payer. I don't know. But I don't know. I mean, that said, I hear a lot of things that like this is actually really popular, so
Yeah, I
I
mean, I
can't
encourage
tell
you
from
to
the
like
outside.
yeah, the people like to people like to present polls that like agree with them. So like for instance, but there are a lot of polls that show that if you ask a question differently, you get very different responses. So for instance,
Mm-mm.
if you ask people like how do you feel about Medicare for all, I think that polls at I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think it polls at like 70% approval among everybody. But if you say like how would
Mm-mm.
you feel about Medicare for all if all private insurance was gotten rid of, then it drops to like 30%. But if you poll it
Yeah,
like, how
yeah.
do you feel about Medicare for all if private insurance is dropped but everybody's guaranteed coverage? Then it goes back up to like 54%. So it's like it's very very
Yeah.
particular like how you present. It's almost like Brexit, right? Where it's like, how do you feel
Yeah.
about Brexit? 52% of the UK voted yay. Well, it's like, well, how do we Brexit? Okay, well now nobody agrees on
Mm-mm.
anything, right? And it's like, and things get way
Yeah,
more
that's true.
complicated. And the Medicare for all thing is very similar to that type of issue, where like, yeah, like people like the idea of it, but when you get into the specifics of how to do it, there's going to be a lot of fighting there for how exactly you want to get it done.
Well, what about the Elizabeth Warren's plan? Because I'll be honest, I haven't looked into it quite as much. This isn't my country, and I'm not voting in this primary, so
Hmm.
there's only so much time I'm realistically going to dedicate to it. But from what I've heard her say, it doesn't sound like her plan's quite as extreme or extensive, whatever word you want to use, as Bernie's. So, what would be your objections there specifically?
Honest to God, I haven't looked into Warren's healthcare plan at all. I'm not actually 100% sure what she is providing. I was under the impression, listening to in the debates, that she's also in favor of single payer as opposed to multi-payer or having a public option, but I could
Mm-mm.
be wrong. I thought that her plan was like pretty similar to Bernie's because both of them seem to get attacked for it on
Okay.
stage.
Right, right, yeah. It's also kind of I feel like a lot of the other candidates who are arguing with them though, they kind of have a um I I think that they can benefit from people like generally the average person probably won't know um what single payer or multi-payer is or the differences and the nitty-gritty of that. So I feel like there can be politicians taking advantage of people not really understanding the issue much and
For
kind
sure,
of
yeah.
talking in a
But
way that's a bit
that's a
alarmist.
reality that you're going to have to deal with come election time, right? Like
Yeah,
every
yeah.
voter isn't perfectly informed. Like
Yeah, 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 you're totally right. I just think with what Biden said with the 30 million figure, roughly 30 million, um, I felt like that was kind of disingenuous considering that's if you like basically go several years into the future and calculate the cost over that period, that entire period, then it becomes 30 trillion. And I don't know, just the way he said it, it didn't really.
Well, I mean,
Anyway,
like, this is
saying
another thing that we fight over in America. Like, paying for these programs is really hard. And I don't think Warren or Bernie are entirely honest with the way that they are going to pay for these programs. Like, I don't think they have the funding for any of these secured yet. And the estimates that they give, they're not even giving upper bounds. They're giving, like, pretty unrealistic assumptions about how much money they're going to be able to raise with any particular type of tax, whether it's Warren's wealth tax or Bernie's financial transaction tax. Like,
yeah, but I think also, like, something to take into account is that Bernie, like, one of Bernie's plans at least seems to be to really negotiate and haggle the prices down because,
Yep.
as you're aware, America pays too much for healthcare compared to other countries when it comes to just medications.
Something you might not be aware of is that in the United States, Medicaid, which is the program that we have for elderly people, no, Medicare is. Wait, Medicaid is? Fuck, I always mix these up. I think Medicaid
either one, don't worry.
is actually specifically banned from negotiating for drug prices. Like, they're not allowed to negotiate a drug price.
But then couldn't you change that?
Like, yeah, you should. Yeah, it should absolutely be changed. It's really fucking weird.
That's what I imagine the plan is, it seems, is to change that rule so that you can't... Like, because I think that... I know a little bit about it. We're actually pretty America-obsessed in Australia, it seems. I think there's a lot of spectacle with your news a lot. And,
don't worry, everybody seems to be.
There's a lot with ours as well, but... I don't know, ours just isn't as exciting for some reason. I guess because it doesn't really matter as much on the world stage. So, yeah, I guess, yeah, it's kind of funny that we know quite a bit about what's going on in your country. No one knows what's going on here because it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of common. America's pretty fucking loud politically. Everybody kind of hears our shit, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you'd think Scott Morrison, our Prime Minister, would be a laughingstock just from some of his weird stunts, like bringing a lump of coal into Parliament with him and then looking lovingly at it. I encourage you to look up that image if you don't know who Scott Morrison is, because it's funny as fuck. But he, like, brought in a lump of coal to advocate for coal energy. So, I don't know, we have our clams too, it just doesn't really get covered much. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of a side thing. So yeah, I've looked into it though, and one of the sources I found, I'll just bring it up now. Again, I'm not like ultra professional at this, so I'm still
yeah, go for it. It's fine.
I put them. Oh goodness me, what have I fucking done with them? Bookmarks other. Oh god, my bookmarks are such a mess. There we go. Okay. No, fuck, this isn't... Why is that in this folder? I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. So, Business Insider, I saw in their article, something I found kind of interesting was them talking about this, this trillions of dollars figure and stuff. But anyway, the part I found interesting was, according to the McAdis model, total health spending would actually come in about US $303 billion lower than in 2031 than under current projections, with 7.35 trillion going to healthcare that year versus the 7.65 trillion expected now. So basically, this is about Bernie, the claims that his plan would be more expensive, but according to the McAdis model, it seems that it would be 2 trillion lower.
Lower than what?
So, lower than current spending, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so anything should be lower than current spending because America spends an unimaginable amount. We spend more money than any other country in the world as a percentage of GDP on our healthcare. It's insane. So I would imagine any type of universal healthcare coverage should lower the spending, 100%, yeah.
It was playing. I thought it was like on your end, but yeah, no, it just started playing a fucking video at me.
Oh,
sorry.
No, it's okay.
That was my
Sometimes
bad.
the site's set.
Yeah, I fucking hate that. Like, if I want to watch a video, I'll watch a video. Stop playing it at me. I didn't want this. Yeah. Anyway, so I guess it doesn't seem like we disagree on that much in the end.
Yeah, I think either single or multi-payer systems could be good, but like politically, there's single payer is just not going to happen. Like, and Bernie is already like in a very, very bad spot right now for the primaries. So I mean, like, like pushing something even more extreme when not even the Democratic Party is ready for it, let alone the broader electorate, seems to be not the way forward, not the way to actually get something through now that actually helps people, like the ACA did. I've noticed it's weird too that like a lot of like people on the left in America seem to be picking up a lot of Bernie supporters seem to be picking up a lot of Republican talking points about the ACA, that the ACA was actually a failure or a disaster. The ACA got like 20 or 30 million more people insured. It didn't do anything for prices, like that's for sure. It didn't help. It didn't reduce costs. But like it did expand availability of healthcare, and it did like change some really fucked shit. Like for instance, like excluding people with preemptive conditions or pre-existing conditions and stuff. So like it did do some good stuff, and it seems like everybody's willing to throw that under the bus now. But yeah.
I think the ACA, like, I'd personally say that it was a step forward, but
Yeah,
I think that the only thing I tend to hear is that it was a smaller step forward than what they wanted.
of
It's
course.
like that they'd want it to be
Oh,
like more of a leap forward, I
yeah,
guess.
Obama wanted like a public option included in it, but that never happened. It didn't get through the Senate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it got watered down because of them having to negotiate essentially with the Republicans.
Yep.
So, anyway, I don't know, but everything I've heard, but then I'm not really tuned into maybe what you'd call Bernie Bros. I don't know, because I think Hassan's probably a little harsher on things like ACA than I would be, but Sam Cedar seems pretty reasonable. I tend to listen to him, and he's
Cedar, I
pretty.
hope those guys at the Majority Report are starting to scare me. Cedar's still, I haven't heard anything crazy from him. I feel like Brooks has gone off the deep end into like the Bernie fandom, and I feel like we're running into like I don't know like how much who you listen to or what you follow right now in the American like political stuff, but like Bernie has like almost no chance forward through the thing right now. Like he's actually like hopelessly far behind. He needs a lot of help, but
Yeah.
like the Bernie Bros are still like completely in denial about it, and I feel like we're running into this weird situation where we did in the prior election, where like oh no, like if Bernie, like the Bernie math. I don't know if you're familiar with that meme. Like the ways forward, yeah, is like pretty rough. So I don't know, but I'm hoping that like
Yeah,
Sam Cedar is still doing pretty good. Yeah.
I'm thinking Sam Cedar, from what I understand, he believes that that Bernie's ideas are popular, or at least the general idea of what he's saying is popular, but I don't know if he says essentially from what I remember. I'm speaking from memory here, but
Mm-hmm.
I think he said that he was hoping Bernie would get the nomination, but that he wasn't necessarily expecting it, that it could go anyway, because we're not really sure how it will go. But I don't think he's ever really been like, Bernie's going to win for sure. And I'm not I don't watch as much Michael Brooks, but I do watch some of it. But I think he's more saying that it would be good if he did win, but I don't know if I've seen them go like, yes, he's definitely got this, he's in. Because it's an
Mm-hmm.
election, so you never really know what's going to happen.
Sure.
I mean, the polls said that the LNP wouldn't win the last election in my country, and they did. So these things can be pretty unpredictable in some senses, but yeah, I don't know, not entirely unpredictable, but
Yeah. I
there's
mean,
an element of it.
sure.
Yeah, yeah. Um. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it, probably. I think I just misunderstood because I kind of got the impression like you were sort of like going, oh well, it's too unrealistic to do anything, so let's just go with Biden or saying. And I hear a lot of weird things on Twitter as well, and I never really know what to think your positions are because like somebody said you changed your mind to support Biden nomination.
I mean, like, I've never said that. I said I would vote for him
No.
in the election. Like, I think that I
Yeah,
probably like lean
yeah.
towards like Warren right now, who's probably more left than even I would like to be. But like, I think I still like pretty squarely support like Warren. But like, people think I've gone like full like right wing on everything. But I don't
Yeah,
think that
yeah,
anything I
because I hear
tweet.
a lot of weird things in my mentions, like
Mm-hmm.
that you've gone Biden supporting when that's not the impression I had when you spoke with Sam Cedar, I think, because I think you said, like, God help us if he gets the nomination in that chat. So I was like, really? I mean, it'd be pretty weird to go like full 180. I think maybe they like, because I don't know, people misquote shit on Twitter a lot, or seem to just have a listening problem sometimes. So I don't know. Maybe they took like, yeah, I'd vote for Biden if it was Biden versus Trump. Like they took that as, Biden 2020 or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, what candidate do you support the most? Do you reckon?
I mean, like I said, I think I'd like Warren to make it. I think would be the best. But
Mm-mm. Yeah, I reckon Bernie or Warren are probably my favorite candidates out of the lot of them.
yeah. Although
So
now
yeah, I
you're
guess
seeing
we
like a
agree on
lot of
that.
Bernies are like pivoting like really hard to like relentlessly shit on Warren, which is kind of sad. I kind of said that this would happen.
Yeah.
It felt like it, that if Warren started to pick up, like, I don't know if you remember, if you followed it, but like a couple months ago, like Bernie bros were usually pretty like, oh yeah, Bernie or Warren, Bernie or Warren, Bernie or Warren. And I got really worried because a lot of
Mm.
Bernie bros seemed like Bernie or busters. And my worry was like, wow, I wonder, like, you know, I bet if Warren starts to get more popular, a lot of these Bernie bros are going to come out of the woodwork and start relentlessly shitting on Warren. And that's started to happen
Mm.
now, where people are like, oh, Warren was a Republican. Warren
Yeah.
is a piece of shit. She doesn't believe in any of this, blah, blah, blah. And I have gone like these hard pivots against Warren. Like,
I have seen that. It's been a little bit strange
yeah.
because I don't think her record's been particularly bad. So, and I mean, she's pretty progressive, so I don't really get it. But yeah, I've heard like Booker's not great, or that like apparently this new campaigning or has been like a shift more progressive, and they don't really trust that he's sincere. And I guess like they trust Bernie because his rhetoric hasn't changed at all
Hmm.
like since he started, but that could also be kind of a problem when you think about it, that if you've been trying the same thing for long enough and it still hasn't worked, then is it
Yeah, but like,
possible that it's not effective, or
this is the
is
kind of
it,
thing that
I
I
don't
don't
know.
like about like a lot of like online activism. Is like when people say whether or not
Mm,
something has worked, what they mean is like, has the revolution happened? Like the ACA was a
mm. uh,
monumental step forward in the United States for what we did with the healthcare. Like this is like a revolutionary thing that is like unimaginable when it was passed, that America would even though it didn't go far enough, but that like that America would even go that far was like a pretty big deal. Um,
mm,
So like to see people be like, oh, like nothing is changing or nothing is happening. Well, maybe not for you when like what you're looking for is like literally like a full on like socialist revolution or some shit. Maybe you don't see anything happening, but like people on the ground
yeah.
whose lives are affected every day by these very real issues, like have seen like the ACA helped a lot of fucking people get insurance that otherwise couldn't have. Like it was a really important step forward. Maybe not like the full on like single payer shit that people want, but like still like a really important step forward.
When you said step forward, I don't know why I thought of like maybe not the Maoist leap forward or
No, not
something, whatever it
not like
was,
that.
and then I was like, I don't know, I thought of that joke, but it's not that great.
Yeah,
My delivery could use some work.
sure.
Yeah, no, it's I do think there are people who kind of go like all or nothing on the left, and I don't really necessarily agree. Where if you can't get exactly what you want, it seems better to me to like try to get as close as you can get than to do nothing at all.
Yeah.
Um, so
Although a
yeah.
lot of people are in that camp where they'd say just because like a lot of people don't like doing a little bit because they're in favor. Like some people would rather have the whole system fail so that it can be replaced
Mm.
rather than trying to incrementally fix what we have now. But I
Yeah, but I
find
mean,
that
I feel like the Republicans want it to fail as well. So, you know, but they want it to fail for different reasons because then they can defund it because
yeah,
then
well,
they can
anytime
get
something
rid of it.
fails,
So,
yeah, a
yeah.
vacuum happens. You can start assigning blame, and then you can push your agenda through harder. Yeah.
Mm-mm. So yeah, it just I don't really agree with the accelerationist route.
Hmm.
So I guess like I think that Hassan sometimes says things that like would sound a bit accelerationist or
Oh
something, but
yeah.
the majority report guys I think tend to be pretty like not accelerationist. Um
I know
yeah,
that
like I
Cedar
feel like
is. Yeah.
as
Or Cedar
Hassan
is like a
says a lot
good.
of things though that are like hyperbolic, and then he doesn't want to back off from it, like maybe it's like a ego thing. I like Hassan, but I do think sometimes he doesn't back off of things he said that he didn't really mean.
Well, it feels like
Um,
for Hassan a lot of the
yeah.
times, like I think like he presents himself as a sockdom, but I really do think he's like a full on like if not, I wouldn't say tanky, hopefully not. But like
No.
he is like a full on like socialist, like is ready for that, like not like very anti
Mm,
capitalist and has
mm.
like but like the way that he flirts with a lot of like that USSR shit like makes me uncomfortable sometimes. Like
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like people who like the aesthetic of it, but without like the necessarily supporting the regimes or whatever. But I did notice as well on the left that like I sort of wasn't as comfortable with the jokes I used to make, like because I used to sort of meme a bit with it, but
mhm.
knowing there's like it seems like there's more tankies than there were, like, or at least they're louder than they were, and
Yeah. And this is
I
like,
don't
I don't
know.
know, like, I think you followed me for a while, or not followed me, but you've been
Yeah,
aware
yeah.
of me for a while. Like, I got really,
Oh no,
I
I've
used,
followed you for a while.
yeah, like I
I
used to like make all the crazy racist jokes and all that shit online, blah 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 blah. And then I
mm,
started to get uncomfortable. I was like, wait a second, there's like a lot of like this alt right shit and this crypto fascist shit. This is like some real shit. Like there's a lot of people that are laughing, but they're not joking. And now like
yeah, yeah.
unironically, because I used to do the like fucking like I think you could even go back even in my Twitter, maybe even up to a year ago, where I've said shit like I'm ready for the love revolution. Let's fucking eat fucking landlords. Like let's do it. I'm ready for this shit or whatever. And I thought it was all
Yeah,
memes and
yeah.
jokes and stuff, but now I'm not sure. Like Hassan goes like on
Yeah.
these full on rants on his stream about how like, oh, the US is worse than the USSR and shit. And I'm like, whoa, hold on, homie. Like I don't know if
Yeah.
I would like unironically say this, but but then like you said, like all of a sudden I start to realize like, wait, I think it feels like there are more tankies here than I actually thought. Like when I'm looking at like the BreadTube subreddit and the San subreddit, and I'm starting to see like these comments bubble up about how like horrible the Hong Kongers are, that like a lot of them are just imperialist like propaganda and shit. And it's like, I don't know about like propping up, totalitarian regimes to own the libs. I don't know how I feel about this. Like,
Yeah, yeah, like, cause I think that mostly most people aren't tankies, but I feel like the jokes about tankies have kind of, it seems like it's almost like sort of normalized it to certain internet folks. Like, I don't know, I've only really seen like anonymous accounts really like start really going hardcore, like, oh, the Soviet Union was actually great and da 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 da. So it's not really all
well, like
that
my problem with
common,
Hassan is like he
but
does this
yeah.
flat out on stream. Like he'll do that. Or that last guy, that Caleb Munchin guy or whatever. I didn't realize he was a full on like North Korean, like Russian apologist. Like that guy like is on like Russia Today doing stuff and like is constantly saying, that like the Western regimes are worse than North Korea, are worse than the USSR, that like the USSR and like Mao's China were actually pretty good. They had a few problems, but for the most part, like they did a lot of good. Like I didn't realize that it
Yeah,
was at this
yeah.
level. Yeah, holy shit.
Yeah, that kind of stuff I admit, like, I think is kind of messed up. Like, because I don't know. So, personally, I decided to, like, lay off the aesthetic of the USSR shit because I realized, like, there are people who aren't joking. There are people
Mm-hmm.
who, like, and then I'd get tankies follow me who'd then get upset if I criticized or said anything vaguely negative about North Korea, and they'd call me racist if I like. I actually joked that it's the tanky loop that you'd get in because you'd say I don't support foreign like U.S. intervention in Syria or in North Korea, and they'd go, okay, so you support those regimes, then you support the Assad regime, you're woke or whatever. And I'd go, well, whoa, I'm not going that far. No, I
Yeah.
think they're terrible regimes. And then they'd go, oh, so you want US intervention, you're racist. And it'd just loop from there where I'm like, no, 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 I don't support US intervention.
Yeah, or
And
like the
then,
people that are supporting
oh, you're
Maduro
a
right now, like
racist or
it's
whatever.
okay if you
Yeah.
don't support Maduro or whatever, but like, or if you don't support like American intervention, but like that doesn't mean you have to say that like the Venezuelan leader right now is doing a great job with stuff. Like there's a lot of problems
Yeah.
down there, and yeah, it's crazy how people aren't able to
It's like
distinguish.
this simplistic world of thinking of like good guys and bad guys and then
Yeah.
not in between. Like maybe there can be more than one bad guy. Like
Hmm.
maybe neither side is really great here, but like even like with all my problems with US interventionalism and all the like interference into other people's shit, I still probably would say America's probably better than a lot of these countries in certain ways. Like,
Hmm.
your citizens probably have more rights than somewhere like Syria, where they fucked over so many people. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. But I'm glad we cleared things up, I guess, because I guess I just got the wrong impression of what you were saying.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's sort of.
Yeah, it's gotten a little bit annoying because I notice that like all the extreme lefty people that I debate now do like the exact same things that all the extreme righty people did to me. Like I'm the Ben Shapiro. I just debate fast, debate tactics. I trick people into saying dumb
Yeah.
shit.
I don't really like that either, because like I don't really think you're being bad faith about things generally.
Memes.
Like, and I think there's been some misunderstandings. Like, I know when you like joked at Luna, like I understand why they found that upsetting or that they thought you went too far or whatever.
Yeah, that's
but
a little annoying though, because like I'm clearly saying, like
yeah,
I think it's pretty clear when you listen to like she's saying that like oh like socialist regimes have failed because of all the capitalism. I was like okay, then I don't want to be a socialist regime. Like I like that's a fair point. Like you can't defend your system by saying well the reason why it's destroyed is because of
yeah.
all these other civilizations that exist. Like okay, well fuck, well
But you
those
were talking,
civilizations
like,
still exist.
broadly.
What?
Like you were talking like broadly about like capitalism versus socialism, but she was talking about her country, and so like the way that that got taken by her and some other people, it seems, was like you were going, yeah, fuck Vietnam, we did nothing wrong, or something, like,
Yeah, I mean,
which I don't
it's,
feel
I
like
mean,
that's
like, it's really annoying because, like, that guy, that non-compete piece of shit, he baited that so disgustingly hard. Like, these are people that literally say, like, oh, racism doesn't exist. That's just class condition. Like, they don't give a fuck about identity politics, like, 99% of the time. But then he literally tweeted out, I think he tweeted out, like, white American imperialist makes fun of, like, Vietnamese woman crying over her bombed country. Like, that was, like, the tweet that he made. I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like, that's the take you're gonna go from that? Like, first of all, and also, like, and it's really annoying because, like, if you know anything about me, I don't support American imperialism. I'm not a fan of fucking Israel. Like, I've never supported any of these policies ever. Like, I've been, like, pretty anti-military intervention in Syria, like, anti-military intervention. Like, I think we handled Iraq horribly. Like, this idea, yeah, I don't know. It was so bad faith and so fucking irritating to me. Holy shit.
Yeah, because I felt like it seemed like a bit of a misunderstanding and a disconnect. Because I know people who like speak to Luna who said that she was genuinely upset by it and thought like you were like celebrating what happened to her country by the Americans and stuff. Which, I mean, I've seen previous debates with you, which maybe is why I didn't jump to that conclusion, or maybe I understood that you were more like shit talking socialism as a broad thing and not like specifically. It didn't seem like you were talking about Vietnam, but she was, and it was like a disconnect where you're talking about the broader picture and she's talking about specifics. So I think I can understand how they would find, like, how they'd go like, oh man, you went too far. But I don't know, I think there was also like a kind of disconnect in what you were actually talking about. Like,
Yeah, it's possible. It was a little bit
yeah.
annoying that, like, I don't know where she came from or why the fuck I was talking to her, other than she also kind of, like, just butted into the stream from, like, because it was supposed to be a debate with non-compete. I don't know how many people know. Like, I was never even supposed to be talking to her, but, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it seemed like, because I don't know, I'm not on bad terms with them, I don't think. Like, I did criticize one of their takes, so I feel like I'm probably not on great terms anymore, but I don't have any issues with them. I've watched a few of Non-Compete's videos and agreed with some of them, and, you know, like, I'm not as far left as they are, but, you know, they've been perfectly nice to me, so
Sure.
I'm not going to assume anything bad faith on their part, but,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it does seem at the very least there was a misunderstanding about what was actually being said there. Like, I don't know, like, because I feel like like, you could probably just say now, like, you don't agree with what America did in Vietnam, like, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, of
It seems
course.
like
I mean, I've never
yeah.
defended American imperialism ever. Like, obviously, like,
No.
Vietnam was a massive fucking shit show, and I don't even know what we had for mission objectives there, aside from napalming the fuck out of villages and shit. Like, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, like, I do think some of, like, the contributions, they were, like, kind of where she'd interrupt, but with something very kind of anecdotal about life in
Vietnam.
Vietnam, and I felt like that was kind of confusing given that you were talking to non-compete as more broader systems, and that's sort of how that,
Yeah, which is also why, like, it got, and
yeah.
she kept trying to be like, I don't want to defend Vietnam and I don't want to talk specifically about Vietnam. But then it's like, then she's giving me examples like, well, my grandma in Vietnam. It's like, well, fuck, dude, I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to say to this. Like, yeah, it gets
Yeah,
like
because
really
you
weird.
can't go, well, your grandma's fucking wrong.
Yeah, it's
Like, well,
weird.
tell
Yeah,
your
like, I can't
grandma
argue
she's
against like the
wrong.
stories you're telling
Yeah.
me. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to say to this? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like when that guy was, oh, what's Anthony Brian Logan, when he said
Oh
that
God,
his
ABL.
grandparents were,
Got
his
gifts from the
grandmother was given
KKK.
toys, yeah, from the KKK. Like, you can't say, well, she's a liar. Like,
Hmm.
it's just a weird thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that's probably everything that I was going to talk about. Thanks for having a chat, I guess.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. Have fun with Stardew.
Thanks a lot, Ben. Bye.
Bye.
Okay? If we rest everything on that one premise that we exist, okay, and we start building from there, right? That